Chidinma's mother decided to surprise her at school with a homemade lunch. She arrived at the gate wearing her motherly clothing and carrying a lovingly prepared meal. As she approached Chidinma and her friends, Chidinma's face turned red with embarrassment. "Who is that?" one of her classmates asked, eyeing Chidinma's mother curiously. Chidinma hesitated, looking at her mother and then at her friends. "Oh, that's just our maid," she lied.
Here, I share interesting folktales and real-life stories. These narratives are not only entertaining but also impart valuable life lessons. So, grab a cozy seat, and let's dive into these magical stories together. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay updated on our latest tales. Thank you for being part of this storytelling community. Let the stories begin.
Once upon a time, there was a young girl named Chidinma who attended a prestigious private school. Chidinma was smart and beautiful, but she felt immense pressure to fit in with her wealthy classmates. Her mother, Janet, was a hardworking woman who did everything she could to make Chidinma accept her and see her as her mother. However, because their financial situation was far from luxurious, Chidinma couldn't help but feel embarrassed around her. This is how it all started. Janet was a kind-hearted woman who married Mr. Joshua, a poor farmer. Mr. Joshua had a weakness for alcohol, spending the little money they had on drinks. Whenever Janet asked for money for family upkeep, it often ended in a fight, leaving her bruised both physically and emotionally. Janet and Mr. Joshua had 6 children, all of whom suffered from malnutrition and lacked basic necessities. Their lives were a daily struggle, yet they bore the weight of their hardship with quiet resilience. Among her children was Chidinma, her first daughter, who was just 8 years old. Despite their circumstances, Chidinma was exceptionally smart and intelligent. Her potential shone brightly in school, but their financial situation forced her to drop out in primary 3. There was no money to pay for her school fees, and the dreams of education were snatched away from her. Chidinma began hawking mangoes for her mother, walking the streets every day with a basket of mangoes on her head. There was a regular customer of hers named Depo and Juliet. They were a happy and wealthy couple who had been married for many years. Despite their luxurious lifestyle and living in a grand mansion, their hearts yearned for a child to complete their family. Their house was filled with every comfort and luxury, but it echoed with the silence of unfulfilled dreams. They admired the young girl's perseverance and intelligence, often buying all her mangoes and even giving her extra cash. Chidinma's bright smile and sharp mind had endeared her to them, and they often found themselves looking forward to their interactions with her. One evening, as Chidinma approached their mansion with her basket of mangoes, Depo and Juliet were sitting on the veranda, eager to hear about her day. "Chidinma, come here, dear," Juliet called out with a warm smile. "How was your day?" "It's been good, Mrs. Juliet. I have sold quite a few mangoes today," Chidinma replied. "Chidinma, you are always so cheerful and bright. Tell us, how do you stay so positive?" Depo said, smiling. "My mommy said if I continue to sell plenty of mangoes, she will pay for my school fees. Besides, I love learning new things, and I want to make my mommy proud," Chidinma said. Depo and Juliet exchanged a glance, deeply moved by her words. They had come to care for Chidinma like the daughter they never had. Juliet reached out and gently took Chidinma's hands. "Chidinma, how would you feel if we helped you with your education?" Juliet said softly. "We see so much potential in you, and we want to help you achieve your dreams." Chidinma's eyes widened in disbelief. "You would do that for me?" "Yes, Chidinma, we want to support you," Juliet said. Tears of gratitude filled Chidinma's eyes as she nodded vigorously. "Thank you so much. I promise I won't let you down." One sunny afternoon, Depo and Juliet drove through the narrow, dusty street to Chidinma's mother's house. They had discussed this visit for weeks, their hearts set on giving Chidinma the opportunities she deserved. They parked their car outside the small house and walked up to the front door. Janet opened the door, her face lighting up with a smile when she saw them. "Welcome, sir." "Welcome, Ma." "Please come in," Janet said. Depo and Juliet stepped inside, taking in the humble surroundings. Chidinma was helping her younger siblings, but she quickly set aside her chores and greeted them with a bright smile. "Good afternoon, sir." "Good afternoon, Ma," she said. They smiled back at her warmly. "We wanted to discuss something important with you and Mr. Joshua," Depo began. Janet nodded, leading them to the small living area where Mr. Joshua was resting in a chair. He looked up with curiosity. "Please, have a seat," Janet offered. Depo and Juliet sat down, exchanging a brief glance before Juliet spoke. "We have come to talk about Chidinma. She is incredibly smart and has so much potential. We want to offer her a place in our home so we can support her education and provide her with the opportunities she deserves." Janet's eyes widened with joy, and she clapped her hands together. "Oh, thank you. This is a wonderful offer. Chidinma deserves every chance she can get." Mr. Joshua, however, saw an opportunity. He leaned forward, a sly smile creeping across his face. "Well, if Chidinma is going to live with you, there will be some expenses. We will need some financial support too, to make up for her absence." Janet's joy turned to embarrassment, and she quickly hushed him. "Stop it, Joshua. This is about Chidinma's future, not about money." Depo and Juliet exchanged a quick, uneasy glance. They could see the sincerity in Janet's eyes. Depo spoke up, addressing Janet directly. "Janet, we understand your husband's concern, but our intention is purely to help Chidinma. We want to make sure she has everything she needs to succeed." Janet nodded vigorously. "Please don't pay attention to him. I want Chidinma to have this chance. She deserves it. We don't need any money, we just want the best for her." Chidinma, standing in the corner, felt a mixture of emotions. She was overjoyed at the prospect of a better future but also felt the sting of her father's greed. Juliet reached out and gently touched Janet's hand. "We promise to take good care of her as if she were our own. She will have every opportunity to thrive." Janet smiled through her tears. Thank you so much. Chidinma, go pack your things." Chidinma nodded, her heart pounding with excitement and relief. She hurried to her small room and began gathering her belongings, her mind racing with dreams of a brighter future. As Chidinma packed, Janet turned to Depo and Juliet, her voice filled with gratitude. "You are giving my daughter a chance at a better life. I can't thank you enough." Depo smiled warmly. "It is our pleasure. Chidinma is an extraordinary girl, and we are honored to help her achieve her dreams." With that, Chidinma returned, her bag packed, her face beaming with happiness. Depo and Juliet took her hand, leading her toward a new chapter in her life. Tears streamed down Janet's cheeks as she watched them go, her heart filled with hope and pride, knowing that Chidinma's future was now filled with endless possibilities. When they left, Janet reprimanded Mr. Joshua for the embarrassment he caused, but he dismissed her with a wave of his hand. "Go look for other foolish people to give away your remaining kids," he said. "You are so shameless," she hissed and left him to his drink. When Chidinma arrived at Depo and Juliet's house, she was bewildered by the opulence surrounding her. The grand mansion was unlike anything she had ever seen. Joy and fear held her in equal measure. Noticing her apprehension, Depo and Juliet shared a knowing glance and decided to help Chidinma feel at ease. "Welcome to our home, Chidinma," Juliet said warmly, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We know this must be overwhelming for you, but we want you to feel comfortable here." Chidinma managed a small smile, but the enormity of the situation was still sinking in. As they settled in, Depo decided to lighten up the mood. "You know, Chidinma, when we first moved into this house, I got lost 3 times trying to find the kitchen. Juliet had to come rescue me." Chidinma's eyes widened in surprise, and a giggle escaped her lips. "Really?" Juliet laughed. "Yes, it's true." He kept ending up in the laundry room. "Instead, I had to put up signs to guide him," Juliet added, causing Chidinma's giggle to turn into full-blown laughter. The tension in her shoulders eased. "That's so funny. Did you ever find the kitchen on your own?" Chidinma asked. Depo grinned, shaking his head. "Not until Juliet threatened to make me do the dishes if I didn't figure it out. That was all the motivation I needed." The 3 of them laughed together, the sun filling the room with warmth. Chidinma felt a deep sense of relief and gratitude. She looked around the room, taking in the beautiful surroundings, and realized that this was the beginning of a new and exciting chapter in her life. Depo and Juliet enrolled Chidinma in one of the best schools in their community, a prestigious institution reserved for the elite. This was a stark contrast to the humble school she had attended before. At first, Chidinma felt out of place among her new classmates, who came from wealthy and influential families. However, her determination and intelligence quickly saw her through. Weeks later, Chidinma had settled in perfectly, making new friends and excelling in her studies. Her teachers praised her for her diligence and curiosity, and she quickly became one of the top students in her class. Back at home, Chidinma experienced a lifestyle she had only dreamed of. The mansion was filled with servants who attended to every chore, and there was even one assigned specifically to Chidinma for her needs. For the first time, she didn't have to worry about chores or hawking mangoes. Instead, she could focus entirely on her studies and enjoy her newfound opportunities. One evening, Juliet knocked gently on the door before entering. "Chidinma, how are you settling in?" she asked. Chidinma looked up from her homework and smiled. "I'm settling in very well, Mrs. Juliet. Thank you for everything. I can't believe how different my life is now." "We are so proud of you, Chidinma. You are doing amazingly well, and remember, if you ever need anything, we are here for you," Juliet reassured her. Chidinma continued to thrive in her new environment. The servants were kind and attentive, making sure she had everything she needed. They treated her with respect and understanding, knowing that she was part of Depo and Juliet's family. In the morning, Chidinma would wake up to an already prepared breakfast. She felt like a princess in a fairy tale. As the weeks turned into months, Chidinma's confidence grew. She participated in school activities, joined clubs, and made lasting friendships. The fear and uncertainty she had felt when she first arrived quickly melted away, replaced by a sense of belonging and purpose. Depo and Juliet watched Chidinma's transformation with pride and joy. They had given her the chance she deserved, and she was making the most of it. Their home was filled with laughter and happiness, in stark contrast to the silence that had once echoed through the walls. Years later, Chidinma graduated from primary school and entered high school. By now, she was in her 4th grade of high school, excelling in her studies and thriving in the supportive environment Depo and Juliet had provided. She had almost forgotten the hard life she had endured before, as her new life had been filled with comfort, opportunities, and happiness. Little did she know, her life was about to be transformed in ways she least expected. Back at Janet and Mr. Joshua's house, things had taken a dark turn. Mr. Joshua, driven by greed and his addiction to alcohol, continued to extort money from Depo and Juliet. His demands grew increasingly outrageous, and each time they refused, his threats became more severe. Janet, heartbroken and torn between her husband and her daughter, always confronted him, but their arguments inevitably ended in violent fights. Depo and Juliet sat in their living room, the weight of Mr. Joshua's threats and accusations hanging heavily over them. His cruel words, accusing them of taking Chidinma because they couldn't have a child of their own, had cut them deep. They knew they had to make a difficult decision. "We can't keep living under this threat," Depo said, his voice filled with sorrow. "It's not fair to Chidinma, and it's not fair to us." Juliet nodded, tears streaming down her face. "But how can we let her go?" Juliet asked, her voice thick with emotion. "We've grown to love her as if she were our own daughter." Depo took Juliet's hands in his expression serious but filled with compassion. "We have to think about what's best for her. We'll let her go back to her family, but we will continue to support her education. We promise to give her the opportunities she deserves, and we will keep that promise." Juliet cried passionately, and Depo hugged her, tears streaming down his own face. The next day, they called Chidinma into the living room. She sensed the seriousness in their faces and felt a knot of anxiety forming in her stomach. "Chidinma," Juliet began, her voice trembling, "we have something important to talk to you about. Your father has been making threats and accusations. It's becoming too much for us to handle, and we don't want you to be caught in the middle of this." Chidinma's eyes widened in fear and confusion. "What do you mean? Are you sending me away?" Juliet's heart broke at the look on Chidinma's face. She reached out and took Chidinma's hand. "We love you, Chidinma. You've become like a daughter to us, but for your safety and ours, we think it's best if you return to your family." Tears welled up in Chidinma's eyes. "No, but I don't want to leave. This is my home now." Depo squeezed Chidinma's shoulder gently. "We will still be here for you. We will pay for your school fees and make sure you achieve your dreams. We will always be a part of your life, Chidinma." Juliet couldn't hold back her tears any longer. "This is the hardest decision we've ever had to make. Please understand that we love you very much." Chidinma hugged Juliet tightly, her own tears flowing freely. "I love you too, Mommy. Please don't send me away." They all cried passionately, holding each other close. The day before Chidinma was to return to her family's home, Juliet decided to visit the market. She couldn't stop thinking about how much she would miss Chidinma and was determined to show her love one last time before they parted ways. Juliet began to buy everything she thought Chidinma might need or enjoy. She picked out new clothes, notebooks, pens for school, beautiful backpacks, and even some of Chidinma's favorite snacks. Each item she placed in her basket was chosen with care, a small gesture to show how much she loved and would miss her. As Juliet moved through the market, her arms grew heavy with all the goodies she had bought, but her heart felt even heavier. She knew that material things could never replace the bond they had formed, but she hoped that each gift would remind Chidinma of the love and care she had received. Depo and Juliet arranged for Chidinma to return to her family's home. The farewell was heart-wrenching for everyone involved. Juliet cried her heart out, holding Chidinma close and whispering reassurances that she would always be there for her. Her mother, Janet, welcomed her with open arms and tears in her eyes. She thanked Depo and Juliet for all they had done, hugging them tightly as a gesture of appreciation. She gave them a bunch of plantains she had just harvested from the farm. They all bid each other goodbye with tears in their eyes, the sadness of parting weighing heavily on them. That night, Chidinma cried herself to sleep, the reality of her situation hitting her hard. The next morning, she awoke to the sounds of her younger siblings running around their small house. She stared at the small portion of food given to her for breakfast, a stark contrast to the abundant meals she had grown accustomed to at Depo and Juliet's home. As Chidinma sat quietly, the reality of the change in her life settled in heavily on her. This story is about to be taken to the next level. Will Chidinma ever adjust to her new life again? Will she ever forgive her father? What do you think will be the fate of Chidinma and her family? If you want to know the end of this amazing story, leave a comment saying it continue, and I will see you in my next video. Thank you so much for watching. If you have not subscribed to our channel, please do so. Like and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss out on any of our amazing stories. Bye bye.